Okay, welcome to a new week. What we're doing today is we're going to be graphing quadratic functions, graphing quadratic equations or functions. Function is basically a rule of how x and y are related to one another. They are called parabolas. Parabolas basically are U-shaped. Okay, so they either look like that or they could be upside down looking like that. Okay. So a parabola comes from an x squared equation. Remember, quadratic means an x squared. Okay, and today we're going to use the pick x, find y method. Make sure you read all these notes. This, in order to save time on the video, I'm going to assume that you already have this printed out and you can follow along with me instead of going through it individually. Okay, first, here's my function. As I plug numbers in for x, I find out the value of y, just like we did with linear equations. Remember with linear equations like y equals 2x plus 5, we plugged in a number for x, got a y. Plug another number for x, get a y. Plug another number. The difference is this was pretty easy, and most of you got to where you can do it in your head. This obviously is going to be more math. The first example I'm showing you is pretty easy because there's a 1 right there on the x squared. That's going to make the math easy. My suggestion is treat this like 3 separate terms. Get an answer for this term. Get an answer for this term. This is a constant. There's no variable on it, so it's always going to be minus 3. And I find out what these two answers are and subtract 3, add it all up, and that's what the y number is. Just like with linear equations, I would always suggest starting with 0 for x. Okay? Now, I like to do my work to the side. Like I said, 3 different things. I'm going to put a 0 in for x squared, and I get 0. I'm going to put a 0 in right there. 2 times 0 is 0. And then the constant is minus 3. And I'm going to combine all those together and get negative 3. Okay? In my notes, I talk about the concept of battleship. I take the ordered pair 0, negative 3, and I plot it. We have a hit. It is on the grid. It's on the x and y axis. So we have what I call a hit. Now the key is I don't know if I need to plug in a 1 or a negative 1, so you just keep picking numbers. I'm going to pick positive 1 for math reasons and see what happens. Put a 1 there and square it. 1 squared is 1. Put a 1 in for x, multiply by 2 and get positive 2. And then that's always negative 3. 1 plus 2 is 3. Minus 3 is 0. So when I pick 1 for x, I get 0 for y. Okay, that is right there. Okay, so we have a hit. We don't know for sure what's happening here, so I'm going to plug in a 2 and see what happens. Okay. Put a 2 in for x. I square the 2 and I get 4. I put a 2 in for x. 2 times 2 is 4. And then the constant is minus 3. That becomes 8 minus 3, which is 5. When I plug a 2 in, I get 5, which is off the chart. Okay? So that means I don't want to plug a 3 in. I have a miss. I want to go the other direction. Instead of plugging in 1, plug in negative 1 for x and find out what y is. So I'm going to plug in negative 1 for x. Remember, negative squared means negative 1 times negative 1, which is positive 1. I put a negative 1 in for x. Negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. And remember, the constant is always minus 3 in this problem. Combine all that. I want to combine the two negatives first and get negative 5. Plus 1 is negative 4. Okay, when x is negative 1, y is negative 4 is right there. Okay, so we kind of have an idea what's happening. It's coming down like this. It's starting to curve. What I mentioned in the notes is you got to keep plugging in numbers until the graph totally changes directions. So let's plug in negative 2. Negative 2 for x means negative 2 times negative 2, which is positive 4. Plug a negative 2 in there, and I get negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. minus 3. That gives me 0 minus 3 is negative 3. Okay? When I plug in a negative 2, I get negative 3. Okay? So my graph has changed directions. Remember, the graph is always going to be some type of U shape. It's not a V, it's a U. It's constantly curving. Okay? So my graph's coming down like this. It's going to bottom out right there, and it's going to curl back up. And I mentioned in the notes the concept of symmetry. You don't have to put it in there, but basically there's a line of symmetry, which means this graph will fold over and match up. That's called the vertex. You don't have to label it. I'm just putting it there. The place where it changes directions, the vertex, just like in an angle, that's called the vertex in geometry. Okay? This is called the vertex of the parabola. And if I were to fold this over, this point would match up with this point, and this point that's 2 spots away from the dotted line, or the fold, or the line of symmetry, will match up with that point right there. Okay? And it's just a way of completing the U shape. I know you guys will say it's a V shape, but it's not. It's a U shape. It continues to go wider and wider. Okay? And then this is what the answer looks like on my beautiful looking paper. Okay, there's the vertex. There's the points I found. Okay. What you will find doing this is sometimes it might take 5, 6, 7 points to figure out where the graph is changing directions. Once I got to positive 2, it was off the chart. So plugging in positive 3 just would have made it worse. So that's why I went to negative 1 for x, find out what y is. Negative 2 for x, find out what y is. And then once it changes directions, use your concept of line of symmetry to fold the graph over. Okay? Like I said, it's just, this graph will just fold over and match up perfectly. Okay? This is example 1, which is kind of easy because of that 1x squared concept. Just like in linear, we picked a number for x, found y, pick x, find y. Well, we're going to pick x, but we got to plug it in here and here, find the y value. Pick another number for x, don't forget the negative 3, find the y value. Okay? I like to organize my work over here and do this as 3 separate terms and then add them together. Those add to negative 3, those add to 0, those add to 5, those add to negative 4, those add to negative 3. Okay, I'll do one more example that's a little bit more difficult, that has a negative 2x squared. That's where a lot of students are going to struggle. Make sure you also watch example 2.